So thank you everybody for coming for this session on the theme Support Networking Infrastructure and Knowledge. After a day and a half, I think it's really important to target some questions that would enable to better organize residency in Croatia in the terms of artists, organizations, hosts, a local scene, and of course the financing bodies. So I think networking, and platforms for artists actually enable cultural networking and exchange of ideas and art practices for gathering information and contacts among art organizations, groups, art centers, and institutes, as well as individual artists and cultural professionals in all artistic and creative fields. Networking actually enables the mutual understanding, cooperation, sharing of skills, and sharing of knowledge, as well as enables further development of local, regional, and international art scenes. Networks are not a given one, so there are some criteria actually to be established for successful networking. When we talk about networks, it is usually something that we all know what we are talking about. But for establishing good networks, it is necessary to have two sides which are proactive in their behavior and which have something to offer. And things that can be offered are not only in financial terms. It can also be knowledge, experiences, contacts, spaces, etc. So when you are entering networking, it is really important to know what are you searching for and what can you offer in this partnership that you are trying to establish. And of course, it is necessary to have willingness to lend skills and to lend knowledge. When talking about networking, it is also really important to accentuate who can be involved. It is not only among art sector and art scene, it is also among the non-art scenes with NGOs, researchers, educators, journalists, social activists, communities, etc. And I think it is also necessary to speak about crossing the borders between all kind of levels of networking in terms of regional, national, and international networking between institutional and non-institutional bodies. So we can make partnerships in completely different environments. And actually, this is something we were talking about yesterday, how to produce new models for the sustainability of artist residency programs. And of course, there is a question, why is this important and what are the benefits? There are short-term and long-term benefits, and I think these long-term benefits are something that is often missing when talking about residencies. I would say that actually networking is maybe one of the biggest immaterial benefits that comes from artists in residency programs. It is also important to actually point out the change in social behavior. So these cliched approaches towards artists or towards art organizations as to those who are usually the ones that are using the public funds and public money and not giving something back should actually be changed, and it is really important to broaden these horizons and to point to the question that it is a two-way process. So what I would like to do here is to introduce our guests and to actually point to some questions that are really important to promote and to enable the other level of which is important for the networking, and that is actually the infrastructure. We were talking about this also yesterday, how to produce sustainable residencies, and the question came up before the panel started, what is actually the term sustainability and what does it mean to produce a sustainable art residency program. So this is something I think we all should think about, and to see what are actually the opportunities for the current situation, which is so burdened with the financial crisis, and not only the financial crisis. So I would like to ask Lillian Fellman to present her intro. Lillian Fellman has an MA in political philosophy. She comes from the University of Zurich, where she gained this education, and also has an MA in critical and curatorial studies. She was a Fulbright Fellow and a trade journalist. She is currently working for the Artis, an international association for artist residencies worldwide. So please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay. Thanks for having Artis all these days. And I must say I'm slightly running out of energy, but I try to keep my zen. Yes, I'm very happy to talk a little bit about what we can offer to artist residencies that choose to become part of our network. So I'll talk a little bit about, in general, what we do. I want to focus most on the Res Support program, which is really targeted towards startups, towards emerging residencies, or some that have been in the field for a while but want to learn in various aspects, just become better at what they're doing. So there are roughly 2,000 residencies in the world. That's an estimation, no guarantee that it's true. We have 500 members in our network in over 70 countries. And we can talk maybe about this later. Why do we have 500 and not 2,000? And obviously there are many reasons to it. And I'll leave it at that for now. You see that the most part, more than half, are situated in wider Europe. And obviously this doesn't show anything about where are they actually located. Most of them are in Western Europe and Northern Europe. We had one member from Croatia in our network, and I was emailing with him. That was Stancija Sikada, if I pronounce it right, I don't know. The person I talked to was Vladimir Kasnad. He said he had to stop the program last year because he didn't have the time nor the money to continue. So, information got lost here. That's a really big shame. It would be a... Oh, wow. Well, if it's just that slide, it's okay. Let's see how it goes on. I wanted to show a little bit how our membership is split up, because we have different types of membership. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We have a membership, we have emerging members, which it all looks really horrible, I don't know. It's okay, we have emerging members, which are about a third of all our membership. And I don't know whether you want to know how much membership costs. I mean, these details, I'd rather talk about the programs, but we have 4 membership types: emerging, general, associate, and individual. Associate, you can imagine, are really big institutions that might have residencies or not, are just interested in being part of the field and be fed with information about residencies and mobility. Emerging, you understand that our young residency programs, after 3 years, they should actually move into the general membership. We make exceptions. I mean, we always talk to our members. It's not like we just... it's not a big administrative body that we're representing. And actually, I want to talk about this very briefly. We are 3 people in the office, and we work 50 and 60%. So we come across as a really big body, I feel sometimes, and that's not the fact. So if our program is very diverse, and probably too diverse, so we also need to restructure that. But there's so much going on in the field, especially now, on all levels, advocacy and just going into all these regions and getting a sense of what's going on, so you can actually service your membership better and not just. We don't want to create a program top down, but really bottom up. And when you're out of the office, you know how it goes. Then, especially if you have a 50% working volume, it's just important to know. We're not like 10 or 20 people who manage this network. So I want to go back and talk very briefly about funding. We did a little poll in our membership, in our database, and we saw that about 57% in Europe are public funded through public institutions. About 19% are self-funded or funded by private foundations. 24% are mixed, have a mixed income, work with mixed models. And we also observe that more and more residencies choose to apply for EU funding, which is very interesting. So that probably has to do with what we heard also yesterday, that your national funding bodies or even international funding bodies that would help residency programs somewhere else are not doing that any longer, but just look for their own. So what then happens is that an Armenian residency, for instance, would no longer get funding from the Mondrian Foundation, and now they try to, I don't know, find a partner in the EU and then, you know, go to the EU funding level. And this is, I don't know, is this frightening? You know, I don't know. I mean, it's really, I hear it here also a lot, of course, and that makes a lot of sense, because there is money. You're part of an international body, which is all something worthwhile thinking about. I just wanted to say, you know, we also heard critique about that we're conditioned into a management society, that's kind of the main value we're trained to think about, how to manage, and not what is actually the artistic production or other ways of influence. And I just want to say one more sentence about this. I think writing a grant is advocacy work. You know, in a way, you have structures that are given to you. Like in the EU grant, it's all about audience development, professionalization, internationalization, and the residency program fits perfectly into that. It covers it all. But when you write that grant, make sure that you write in your own values, that you can take the ramifications, but you fill it with your language, with your values, with your goals. And I think it's really something that also came to me lately, because I had to write a Creative Europe grant and to rethink what I'm actually doing here. You know, I don't need just to fill the gaps, but I have to make these people understand, because we are the experts, not there. No, they are not the experts, and we need to make them understand what we're actually doing and where we need support. This is a list of, now I get a bit into our programming, I think really briefly. So we started up doing Artis, started up with the meetings. We have general meetings, regional meetings, and now we have a new type of meeting that's called thematic meeting that we only start to test. But that was the initial programming part of Artis when it started over 20 years ago. And thematic meetings are really an interesting, very dynamic tool, because you can talk about issues that pop up in our network, like for instance artist residencies and social justice, or artist residencies and museums, or artist residencies and green practices. So it's something that can catch up new developments, new interests relatively quickly with a low budget structure. It's really sad to see this all torn apart. Then res support. You got a bit of a taste of what res support can do, because yesterday we gave you a shorted version of the res support workshop that is really for emerging residencies to learn how to set up a residency and to make it sustainable. And it's great to for situations like this to actually jump into that very applied way of thinking about residencies. We have various online tools. I will not go through that now. You can check them out yourself. We have a Resuport fellowship that is for our members, that are emerging members can learn for 1 month in an established residency within our network. That is usually sponsored by our members that can afford to do so, or we look for grants to cover several in a region. And it's always great if the Ministry of Culture sees the opportunity in this and the value of this, because it's quite unique for residency managers to learn in the field practically, really in an applied context. We wrote a Resuport handbook that is more than 100 pages thick and really covers everything you can think of that you need to know when starting up a residency. That's from management questions to, sort of contracts you need. How do you accommodate your artists? We covered a lot of that in the Resuport workshop, but this really goes into further detail and is collecting a lot of examples. And we give this continuously back to our membership so it can grow and the international examples can be added. It's a very applied manual. And we are planning a Resuport EU Hub project together with Three Dimensional, an American organization. And what we try to do there is to train residencies in our network to become refugee hubs so that they get the knowledge about a very specific know-how, what you have to do if you want to host exile artists, because you need a very specific network, obviously locally, that allows you to do that. You need legal advice, you need health, the health sector has to be involved, you need maybe psychological help. You have to know how to deal with emergency visa applications. There's a lot that you need to be trained for this, and it's one of the latest Resuport projects that we hope to take on, but we have to see whether we get the funding for it. We have Artis mapping. I mentioned that several times, where we try to map the world of residencies, and it's really a research tool for us to see the development in the field, because it works with a very long and extensive list of criteria that you have to fill in order to get onto that map. So we get a lot of information about how you're funded, is your thematic theme, what are the sort of artists you work with, what are your partnerships. So it's a great tool, but it's obviously very work intense, and we have a lot of partnerships to develop this. How many? I'm done, eh? Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's advocacy work we do, and that's just a kind of a call. Get on to our map, Croatia. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lillian. On my right is Max Aufischer. He's the head of the Association Kulturvermittlung Steiermark, Cultural City Network Graz, and International Writers' House Graz. Max studied painting at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, worked as an artist teacher in Graz, did solo and group exhibitions, projects in public spaces all over Europe, published a variety of books, and in 2005 he was awarded with the City of Graz Human Rights Award.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks to the organizers, but also thanks to the Austrian Cultural Forum. Mr. Lack is here. Thank you very much that I could be here and for listening to me. First, I want to add some personal remarks. What I've heard yesterday, some lectures, and also some discussions today. For my person, I'm Janus-faced. I have two faces. On one hand, I'm civil servant and working in the municipality of Graz in the cultural department. On the other hand, I'm heading Kulturvermittlung Steiermark. It's an institution. I and pupils of mine and teacher colleagues of mine founded it in 1988 officially. We started already with our job 1985. So it's, if I do my job good, it's the job of the mayor and the vice mayor for art affairs. If I do my job bad, then it's my job, you know. So it's but everybody knows that I'm in the background, you know. That's my good luck for me, you know. The second is I'm less interested in cultural programs. I'm less interested in residency programs. I'm very interested in the work of artists. I'm very interested that we can continue our residencies in Graz. And I like quality. That's, I think, very important for me to say. That's because this is very often at the point of discussion. I wanted also to say something about sustainability. It's a word I cannot pronounce in correct way, and I don't want to pronounce it in the correct way, but I think it's the most misused word, politically misused word, we have to face today. So let me start a little bit about the introduction of my job. In Styria and Graz, we have a very long tradition in hosting artists and in cooperation, especially with East and Southeast Europe. So we have already heard about the Pépinière program. Graz was involved, or is involved. It was also the new gallery from Stadtpark in the 70s and 80s. We had a big programs and cooperation programs with this area we spoke about. We focused. Die Kulturvermittlung Steiermark is, but poets and writers had been invited on the beginning of the 70s. It ended about end of the 70s. This was the Stadtschreiber program. Our residencies started on the mid-80s and 80s. And it was in the frame of International House of Writers, starting 1997, and Cultural City Network 1989 about. So let me say some word a little bit about Kulturvermittlung Steiermark. We started, as I told you, about 88 officially, and we did a lot of art exhibitions, mainly contemporary art exhibitions on contemporary history, projects in open space, art competitions, conferences, and so on. And we installed a program which is called Kultrend. It's the system that artists, mainly fine artists, can rent frames and technical material for exhibitions and other things. So the residency program, it's not the only job we are doing, so it's more or less connected with all these other jobs. So I think the most important thing for us is, when we are doing this residency program, it's to find a network within the city. To cooperate with the officials in the city, with artists in the city, but also with artists and institutions nationwide and worldwide. So, for example, we did a lot of cooperations with Kulturkontakte Austria, also with Kulturforums in different countries in our neighborhood. And in all our jobs, mainly we are focusing especially the Southeast and East European countries. But it's not closed for this. We are open also worldwide. Networking and to get information is a very important point. So we are looking around to publishing houses, curators, translators especially, and people who are working in this field. And I think it's very important, some kind of feeling, you know. It's to get information, to look what's going on, And we have no gallery in Graz, and we are not organizers of lectures and so on. So we are cooperating with other institutions in Graz. So it's very important to be trusted by the others. They believe in your job, in what you are doing, and so you must have a lot of knowledge what's going on around, but you don't have to speak about. Because everybody who speaks with you gives you an information, a personal information, what's going on, in which way you can cooperate. But he knows or she knows in the same time that you're cooperating with others. So, but the information shouldn't go too early in the circle, you know. So it's very important to have this feeling with whom you can speak and in the same time about the different projects. Our most important residency program is the International House of Writers. It's in the center. We have a hill, and there's a small house or castle or something else, including 3 flats. One flat is for the Stadtschreiber. It's a program we invite artists for a year. That's an official jury organized by the city of Graz, by the cultural department, with freelance curators and there are clear applications. The second is the Write in Exile program. We host writers who have problems in their home countries in human rights situation. And then we have short-term scholarships or residences, sorry. So, but sometimes, and this is a very informal applications, or we're looking around what's going on, or what are the wishes of our partners within the city, or other partners. Sometimes it's funny to read applications. For example, I'm 25, I'm artist, I'm 25. I had residencies in Honolulu, Paris, Krakow, Budapest, and so on. But not any information about publications, not any work about what they are doing, so on. So it's a funny thing, because it's like, when I was, my son, my children had this system of interrail, you know. It's a danger of the whole system of residencies. In detail, we have different jobs. It's very simple to say: invitation, visa job, to support for traveling. We have to make connection to the artists on the local scene. We have to look what the wishes, what the artists want to do, to look for material, to look for archives, to look for different things. The main bigger problems is with the long-term residencies, Stadtschreiber and Write in Exile, because they come with children, to have to look for a school, to have for kindergarten, some health problems and so on. So it's very different. It depends on the age, it depends on the situation and different things. So, what also the important is, what I have already said, is to be a spider in a net, you know. So it's like parachuting, 3 minutes, eh? Okay. But I see also a second danger. It's networking and communication in a dimension, in a too big dimension, you know. So many institutions are always communicating and networking, and the result is poor, what I can, from my personal view. So it's like hyperactive children, you know. So they are working and working, and they are creating big problems. And then it's the bigger problem, how to minimize this in a handling dimension. And then many good connections have die, you know, because But if you have to minimize something, you have always problems in future days to communicate with this person you have thrown out, you know. So I think that's the most thing. It's a very simple thing to invite people to look for money, and then do your job, you know. And on the end, there's a book, there's an exhibition, and it's no risk, no fun, you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On my left side is Bojana Panevska, a visual artist and researcher based in Amsterdam, where she graduated at the Gary Rietveld Academy in audiovisual department, and afterwards received a master's degree of fine art at the Steiermark Institute. She has been in a few artist in residency places in Europe and Asia, and works as TransArtists project manager for international collaboration and exchange.
Thank you, Ivana, and thank you, Pogon, for inviting me. It's my pleasure being here. I heard so many interesting stuff in this day and a half, I would say, so far. I'm going to start with introducing a bit TransArtists. I mean, or maybe just ask a quick question. How familiar are you with the TransArtists website? So I see some notes, some totally, yeah, okay. So I'm going to say shortly about it because I structured my presentation a bit differently, but you will see, it will come. So, TransArtists is an organization based in Amsterdam, and our primarily focus is collecting information about artists in residence places from around the world. It was formed in 1997. I'm there for the past 5 years or so. I work 1 day a week and mostly give the workshops and presentations for artists, either in Europe or around the world. One of the main focuses for TransArtists is the artist perspective. So we try to collect information that will be useful for artists. In our database currently we have 1,600 residencies, and the choice is really enormous. And as you already heard so far, each residency is an island on its own with its own conditions, duration, facilities, anything you can imagine. They are all very, very different. And not to even go on the subject of funding, that's totally different, different subject. Another thing what we are doing, we are initiating a lot of, mostly so far, European projects. And currently the project that is going on is called Gala, and it's a project that deals with sustainability. And another big project that we finished in 2012 was On Air, and we worked with 15 partners from Eastern and Western Europe trying to kind of overcome the differences, or to see what are the differences in each country and what each country needs. So what we did different kind of workshops or presentations that were tailor-made for this country. I'm going to finish here about TransArtists. I'm around later on. We can talk even more. I would like now... Okay. I would start with reading a quote from David Foster Wallace. It's part of the commencement speech he did in 2005 at the graduates of Kenyon College, and I'm just going to use his introduction a bit. There are these two young fish swimming alone, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" The immediate point of the fish story is that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are the hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude, but the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have life or death importance. Before I go to my next slide, actually, I would like to ask you, all of you, to close your eyes and to just focus for a second on some very big wish that you had and that eventually got fulfilled. So no unfulfilled wishes. Just something that was really big for you. It can be, I don't know, a certain job position, a Chanel bag, a love from someone, depending on your wishes. So I will give you 30, 45 seconds, just really focus on how it happened and how you came to that process and how much it affected you. Sure.
We don't have 5 minutes.
Well, maybe just trigger it for beginning. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So it was really interesting for me to observe you because I could see some faces that were really happy. So I could see that you were almost getting there to this moment. And what I wanted to achieve with this mini exercise and mini time to even come to kind of a conclusion or to relive this experience is I don't know if that's the right word, but it's this initial enthusiasm that you have once you really honestly want something. And I'm saying this because for most of you who want to start a residence, you would need this. You would really need this initial enthusiasm to go with it. When I teach to my students at art academies, the first thing I always ask them is, how much did you think about this idea of being an artist? What does that mean to you? And how much are you ready to be an artist and to live the life of an artist? Because it's definitely not glamorous. It's definitely not a life that will enable you some big financial riches. And more or less, I would say the same goes for residency organizers or for art lovers in that sense. And to come back to the topic of support, networking, infrastructure, and knowledge, I was thinking how to approach this. And the main thing that I would like to focus is on the part of networking. And I was thinking to approach it from a bit, I don't know if I dare to say so, esoteric point of view. I was trying to look at networking or just the way of organizing the residency and using the infrastructure that you already have as a kind of ritual. So I took out few points that are really important for whatever kind of ritual you would like to do, even if it's just going out to drink a coffee. You know, there is a way how coffee is served, with what is served. So it's all rituals. So we can also look at this as a kind of a ritual. So what is the first ingredient for a successful ritual is a desire and the will to go with it and to do it. But it has to be an honest desire. You can't lie to yourself, hence you can't lie to the universe. So it has to be very honest desire. Then the second crucial ingredient for any kind of ritual is timing. And timing can be very tricky, very often. So as a residency organizer, really have the timing in mind. When is the right time for you to do a certain move, and when is not the time? Don't hurry up. Don't be impatient. Eventually, it will happen if you are really honest. Is definitely the word I would again use. The third component would be vision. What do you actually want to achieve with doing this ritual or with organizing this residency? The fourth component would be direction and openness. So where do you direct your energy and how you work with it and to whom you direct it? And we've heard the word social impact many times during these days. And actually it is a buzzword currently in the residency field. But then comes another question which I would like maybe to pose, but as an artist, so not as a representative from any organization, just as an artist, is, in my, dare I say, humble opinion, art is per definition has an impact. And if you try to force it with having a social impact, the results that you will get are just superficial. It's the impact that you will get, it's going to be an illusionary impact that you want to see. If the intentions are honest, and if the artist who produces this artwork is really honest in what he is doing, and the art that he or she is doing is coming from a source from within the artist that is really, okay, maybe I should just skip to the next point. But yeah, the idea of this, about the social impact that you as a residency can have, or that the artist can produce, is inevitable. I mean, art has an impact. It's not always visible, it's not always tangible, but good art always communicates one way or another. But you cannot force any artist, or anyone for that matter, to make a social impact. That's such a big expectation from anyone. You can't force governments to make a social change. It takes such a long time, and not to give this role to the artist. Having said that, I would like to, talking about the networking and about the infrastructure, what I wanted to add is to try and to use whatever you have in your surrounding. So with that, I wanted to quote myself, actually read a text that I wrote after I visited Nida Art Colony in Lithuania, which is a very interesting place. It's in a national park. And I wanted to read this just because they really used what they have as a component of the residence. And I think that's the very, very important, is this awareness of what is the water around you. I mean, if you are the fish, what exactly is the water? Because very often we always think the grass is always greener somewhere else and not around us. So maybe I'm just going to read this. Dorothy famously noticed that there is no place like home, although in current times, it seems the idea to escape from home comes quite often, especially among artists. The reason behind the need to get away can be very different, but one thing is common. Being an outsider puts you in a different frame of mind, your senses are sharpened, you are more critically observant and open to outside influences. Quote, "Every continent has its own great spirit of place. Every people is polarized in some particular locality, which is home, the homeland. Different places on the face of the earth have different vital effluence, different vibration, different chemical exhalation, different polarity with different stars. Call it what you like, but the spirit of place is a great reality." Unquote. City life can potentially deprive us of the connection with nature. Our behavior patterns are under constant pressure to speed up. Deciding to stop and choosing to go to a remote residency, one needs to be prepared, since the natural world can be inspirited and magical, while at the same time sacred and terrifying. What is of big importance is that some places are more charged than others, with heavier concentrations of energies. The genius loci, the spirit of place, informs and inspires directly through its nature. Some people tend to tune in to such places. They cannot say exactly what it is they have stumbled upon, or even why it is powerful, but they know something is there. The quote I used is from D.H. Lawrence, Studies in Classical American Literature, and it's the first chapter where he talks about the spirit of a place and how the connection is inevitable when you create something. I mean, he talks about writers, but it can be applied to any kind of art form, how important the place is and how much it affects your work. So here I'm writing about a remote residences because Nida is remote. But you can apply this looking for the specialness of your place. It can be a city, it can be anywhere, but find that special thing that you have, that you that nobody else has. And I mean, every city, every place is unique on some own way. I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's hard to stop a presenter because they are all great examples, and I'm sure we can all learn a lot from them, but there'll be more opportunities afterwards. And last, Teodor Celakoski. I would like to introduce him to speak about himself and his work. Teodor Celakoski is a cultural worker and activist from Zagreb, and his work ranges from coordinating cultural programs, networking and cultural advocacy, to institutional innovation and political activism, and is guided by a vision of culture as a form of transformative agency. He was one of the initiators of the Multimedia Institute, Clubture Network and Kultura Nova, and in 2013 was awarded by the European Cultural Foundation.
Yeah, I won't talk about myself and my experience. Rather, I would like to kind of stress some points of development in Croatia around the issue of infrastructure that could help even the development of residency programs and infrastructure for residencies. So like more than 10 years ago, we started with a kind of idea that with the intense collaboration logic on a program basis with the Clubture network, that we will kind of, apart from bringing kind of then decentralized logic into the process of sharing and producing programming in Croatia, at least on the independent culture scene. We, after some time, realized that the system doesn't really recognize the innovation within this logic of collectivity and kind of deliberative process of decision making around the programming and around this type of peer-to-peer networking within the wider platform. But we realized that the system recognized basically the institutions and the infrastructure. And apart from having a real need for the infrastructure for realization of programs, we realized that the problem is that the system is really asking for kind of firm entities and dynamics around these entities and institutions. And coming into this field, we started to think on how the innovation on institutional basis could be applied within the existing framework of culture policy, and somehow we end up in through process in some one idea of civic public partnership. So that's not the kind of in continuity with the public-private partnership. This is the concept that goes beyond or contra logic that is developed in a neoliberal framework that that governments and other international entities are pushing over these countries in development. So in a way we said we need kind of commoning the public in terms of opening the public type of institutions with participation and in governance, so not participation in like giving advices or something like that. So participation in governance and leading of these new type of institutions. So we brought this idea to the table and negotiated with the local authorities, and there was no response on this. They even didn't understand what this is, and they were saying like this is not possible at all within the system. So the idea was to build kind of a common institution, public institution, but of a mixed type of ownership, so that there is from one side a coalition or network of organization here in Zagreb, culture organization and youth organization from one side, and from other side the local government. So after some other fights within the kind of last 10 years and within this, the development of the spatial and urbanistic development of the city, somehow the idea suddenly appeared to them as a clear, and then they established this institution Pogon as this mixed type of institution. And why am I saying this? Because the logic of working in previous years, like the last 15 years here on the culture, Croatian culture scene, is to build on the steps previously achieved. So why the story around Pogon is important is that it is ground together with Kultura Nova as a new type of funding body, public funding body, that was also established in some kind of bottom-up principle. This is public foundation again. And because these steps within the system were like delivered in a kind of complementary measure, as a complementary measure, because we don't really think that, you know, like pushing the system in overall change is possible at all from our position of power. So that kind of complementary measures could build certain institutions and practices that could in future years be some kind of ground for next step in development and changing the culture policy framework in direction that is more kind of open and dynamic in terms of how resources are spent and what are the overall goals of the culture system as such. So, and these two institutions proved to be very kind of successful in next step of communicating towards the governance, toward even the Ministry of Culture and some other ministries, in the process where the structural funds starting to be applied for Croatia for next 7 years. So the programming process is now really now is kind of developing, and it should be finalized in the next several months. And Pogon as an example, and on the other side Kultura Nova as a kind of public institution, kind of having different position in advocating something. Because when you come from the independent culture scene, you are always kind of recognized as somebody, you know, just who needs more money, or who are interested in, you know, just like basic needs of programming or existence. So your demands or proposals are always kind of treated, they treat it as something what is in a way like in parallel to other 1,000 needs. You know. So, but when something comes from the public position as these new institutions that's starting to function as a middleman in the kind of in this process, then suddenly some doors started to open more, and during this process of programming European social fund in Croatia. Now this is in process. There are no final results still, but on the other side, because European Commission have to still kind of confirm this this process and these results. But we succeeded. We were successful in pushing financing for the social culture centers, organized in a manner of civil-public partnership. Throughout the whole Croatia, with some resources of almost 20 million euros for next 6 years. So that's still in the kind of in preparation. but the chief ministry for the handling of these resources for European Social Fund decided to have these projects and these measures as one of several in this framework of European Social Fund. So without Cultura Nova and Pogon as an example, and Cultura Nova as a public advocator for pushing some new models into the system, that wouldn't be possible. But on the other side, the idea of social culture centers as a civic public partnership are somehow now progressing into the idea of more opening this type of infrastructure that is managed and kind of through some kind of self-management logic, is that we realize through parallel activistic process and even on the culture scene that it is needed to open this type of infrastructure for other stakeholders, for other associations from civil society, coming from the, you know, different issues from housing or, I don't know, dealing with asylants and stuff like that. So there is a huge need of this type of infrastructure in a different place in Croatia. And last like 4 to 5 years, we've been developing the process to, all together, the process with a lot of like in 5 or 6 cities, the process of kind of networking over the demand for this type of infrastructure and this type of governance that is participative, based on civil public ownership. So in that sense, the whole idea about why it's need to do this type of mixes, because we realize that public institutions are very much kind of closed type of dealing with stuff, with programming and with human resource management. On the other side, the, you know, autonomous zones and independent culture centers are usually underfinanced. They don't have proper resources apart from programming. They don't. They are kind of just among different actors that do programming, and basically there is no stability for this. So that's kind of that is kind of ground for thinking about institutional innovation and pushing the whole kind of culture organizations and innovation coming from culture field into broader social field where other actors could interact and participate in using this infrastructure. And that's the reason why I personally believe that the opening of this type of infrastructure in a modular sense could be helpful for residency programs, for immigration, you know, houses or centers, for, you know, the solidarity economy type of development or social businesses. So that, you know, the kind of mixture of communal type of need of local communities are something what we should think of when we are building infrastructure even for residencies programs. So in that sense, this is not pushing artists into like a political or social field in terms of, you know, like you have to do something, but bringing them into environment that is fruitful in terms of different type of interactions and different type of needs, might also result in some kind of not only new exchange, but widening the experience. In that sense, the logic of tactical networking within the activist development in Croatia on several places, Dubrovnik, Zagreb, Pula, where different actors from culture to grassroots citizens initiatives to green organizations, building alliances that are cross-sectorial. I think that the culture actors could have a vision of widening you know, the field and pushing into this type of collaborations, because they are fruitful. They bring, you know, other totally different type of experience about how to organize, how to deal with stuff, even ideologically. So this is kind of making a fruitful ground for fresh thought and action in this framework of wide base of social actors involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theo. I think you successfully managed to connect two major topics that are the main theme of this panel, and this is networking and infrastructure. And I think in this context, it is also very important to touch upon one question that Mr. Aufischer opened, and it is a matter of sustainability. So I would just like to pose a question for everybody here. How do you think about sustainability? How do you define it? We were talking about sustainability in terms of financial models, but also sustainability in terms of defining what is sustainable in the times of constant transition. It's a tough question.
What is sustainable in a constant transition? Nothing.
Yes, the human mind, and the human mind is very powerful, and I think right now our societies are developing in a way that I feel like it's splitting. It's like a big split. It's like some people seem to understand that we have to stop competing and start cooperating. That's the words that were used yesterday, but I think they're very accurate. And that goes back to what you're saying. We have to work cross-sectorially. That will create sustainability because, and that's something Yvette said yesterday, we have to build resilience. We have to build it everywhere, not just into the policies, but in our thinking, in our practice, into everything we do. We cannot just think it's a solution to convince the Ministry of Culture of something and then we're safe. We have to talk to everybody that understands or has the willingness to understand. I think it's a good time that we're in. But there's definitely another world that is not interested in this. And we have to be wise in terms of how much energy we spend where, and that we understand that there are limits, or let's say that we have to turn away from certain old patterns and ways and hopes that are not working anymore and turn towards those who are supporting these ideas of collaboration, cross-sectorial sharing, pooling resources, be innovative, use our human mind potential, which is unlimited. And just one last thing. I just hear a lot of self-limitation in this room. And that's something we do a lot. And it would be great to just grab it and throw it out. I try it every day, but I think it's part of it. Because if you don't believe that sustainability is not so important, that if you don't believe that you can create a process that goes on and goes in a direction that you want it to go, if you don't believe in this, then you cannot start thinking it's not going to happen or it happens in 20 years, it's now.
But I think this is maybe due to the many obstacles people are facing every day. So these obstacles are just blocking the view.
Yeah, every obstacle is a challenge. Turn it into a friend. It's not just here. Don't think you're victims here. It's everywhere.
Thank you for saying this. If there are any questions from the audience, you are welcome to ask.
So, sustainability. A short story. I was involved for the application Graz Cultural Capital 2003. It was my main job until 2000. And there was a lot of planning and a lot of thinking. And if you remember Graz, if you came in the 70s, 80s, it was a dark city. It was not so dark as in Vienna in those days, but it was a dark city. No gardens in front of the bars and so on. So, and it changed absolutely during the cultural capital. But we had good luck. There was a program for this open scene, for this, and in the whole city. And we had a lot of tourists. And we had a lot of immigrants from Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, of war reasons. And they came 10 years before, more or less. And the whole summertime we didn't have any rain. So all productions in the open space had a wonderful scene, you know. And this changed the city absolute. Now if you go to Graz, you have a lot of possibilities to sit in the garden, to sit in the streets, to sit in front of coffees and to think. This changed, but the base of this change had been the immigrants. They had been in Graz 10 years. They had got a job, and they had taken with them this thinking of Corso, you know, to go out, to show the new clothes, to show the new shoes, and to speak with the others. And this was the feeling of the South, you know. And this was in connection with the program of cultural capital in these open spaces, in connection with the weather, and with other tourists. It changed the city, you know, and it's a new feeling of city. All other things we had thought that is sustainability was not sustainability. You know? It was nothing. It's changed every year. We spoke about, because if you don't plan for the future and you're not looking in the future, you lose always this, it minimizes more and more this sustainability. So it's very important to look what's going on in the society. It's but you are never safe before what's the real aspect. So I think it's a very important thing, and we have to say it very politically. No risk, no fun. No risk, no result. That we have to say, and if I must underline what you have said, we have to make sure that artists have the possibility to work with themes of our time. But it's not the obligation of them. Mr. Huber and Mr. Meyer and Mr. Karlovac or something else on the street has the same obligation to look on to save the world as artists. Not more, not less. Because we are a society and everybody has his job. And the artist's job is to be artist and to make his production, hopefully that is sensible and is effective for the public, you know.
Thank you. I would just like ask Bojana to just make a comment. You were saying about sustainability as a buzzword.
And what was your question? Sustainability in a constant transition? Yeah, I mean, constant change is good. There is no stability in any sense of aspect of looking at whatever. So constant change is good. Transition is a bad word on the Balkan because transition on the Balkan lasts forever. So I would rather call it change than transition. I don't know, for me, sustainability, a part of the obvious that you need to focus on the local and the local products and to use as much as you can from your own surrounding before trying to save somebody on the other continent. Take a look at what people around you need. But primarily is education. Primarily comes the education, educating people or children, starting from very early age, and then we don't even need to talk about sustainability. I would rather talk about education and how we can approach all these subjects and make people aware from very early age, not ignore them, not push them away, don't put our pink glasses, but let's look what's happening and what can we do about it. For me, I mean, that sustainability would be to start from education and to focus on the local primarily. And of course, the local, when it becomes universal eventually, when you deal with certain issues, because you're not the only one who deals with it. There are many other parts of the world who deal with the same things.
I think that we have to be careful with using in this very kind of eager manner these words of transition and sustainability, because I think the culture actors are kind of very sensitive beings, and from one side thinking of importance of the social aspects of culture and arts from one side, and even pushing confrontational logic in this, but on the other side usually also dominant discourse in kind of using in and maybe a little bit changing in the process of self-describing. And so I think we shouldn't believe in change that much, because this is the basic kind of discourse of transition, that it is not only Eastern Europe type of transition, like a Washington consensus type of thing, but it is wider issue of last 30, 40 years, dealing with neoliberalization of everything, pushing on the market and stuff. So when we use all these terms, we have to maybe fight for other notions of these terms, and try to avoid the basic dynamics of persuading people, because the whole system is functioning in a way of first we have to believe in it, you know, and nowadays all over us everything falling apart in a way. Most of the people, you know, will end up with no secure job. So I'm not sure that, you know, from culture field we have to advocate for more change, because this change is really going into wrong direction. So at least when the kind of the neoliberal process starting to be challenged, at least at the legitimation level, we shouldn't, from the culture field, kind of underpin the terms and the notions and the self-understanding of this, how this functions. So I would avoid terms like transition as in any kind of positive aspect. So I wouldn't fight for this word of changing the core notion. And yeah, we have to, you know, this type of Soros realism that was kind of brought into the region, like open society stuff, and we should move further because there are enough sources and information and knowledge to realize what is this otherness than, you know, just adjusting ourselves to the already very damaging processes.
Thank you for the comment. I would just like to make a point that by using the word transition, I didn't put any ideological meaning into it, just stating the state of reality.
That's the problem. Because usually this ideology functions like that this is kind of normality. So this is the, you know, no ideology, only transition. This is ideology.
Well, if you I would avoid the term of normalization here, but we can. I think we are going into a direction that is not the theme of the discussion.
I think it is.
I wouldn't like to impose my position here as a moderator, but I do agree with you that avoiding normalization and staying in line with the quiet ideology could be a trapping point to.
Okay, then we agree.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Well, I think there is there is one really important question to be touched here, and this is actually if we step beyond this mapping of the reality, what are actually the options? What do you see as a possibility to be necessary to work upon from all levels, institutional, non-institutional levels? And I would like to pose this question to everybody at the table. Okay. So what are actually, Theo, please do so, but I think that we should somehow try to see the perspective more widely and to see how things can be changed in terms of offering new models of infrastructure that is necessary to be built upon.
We are supposed to suggest new models of...
No, just offer some solutions. That would be helpful.
I would skip this question. I'm sorry, but giving solutions to this kind of subject, it's a very tricky. And I would rather not give solution, and nobody can, for that matter. We can point out to certain things that are happening, but to give solution to this kind of subjects, I wouldn't even dare to touch upon. I can maybe point out things that are going on, but solutions, I would definitely not want to go into that direction.
Well, I was speaking more in terms of good cases that could be something that we can work upon. Because in Croatia we are still building capacities to produce some new models and enabling new initiatives to be produced, since the situation is really just in the development phase.
Okay, but we are still talking about artists in residence, right?
Yeah.
We are not talking about saving, okay. Well, I have one very concrete example, and that's a residency. I was in Sardinia, and I was there for 2 months, and this residency is a really small residency that operates every 2 or 3 years, depending on their funding. But then talking about this impact that they are having, it's in a very small village, quite poor, because the south part of Sardinia is quite poor. And what they did while we were there, we were 7 artists invited from all around the world. And what they did, they hired every day somebody from the village, man or woman, to cook for us. And they were paid for that. So this is a direct impact that you can have. If we are talking about some kind of solutions, and if you want to affect your surrounding, then I would suggest something like that, that will directly have an impact. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, what we were talking about with other participants of the forum is how to actually how to put art residencies like active body within the society. And thank you for the comment.
You have a mic.
I think, okay, I say something that I think is maybe has not been said, maybe. Though you kind of did. I feel I need clarity. For me, and I have to say this, Artis does not represent the artists. We really represent the residency programmers. And it's important to understand that these people also have a vision. It's not just the artists who have a vision, and that's a good point you made. We all have visions and we all have responsibilities. And just to make this distinction that as an artist residency program, you can take up a social role. You can claim it and you can realize it, and it's a process. You might fail, you learn. And at the same time, you can satisfy your artists who just sit in their room, reflect, or whatever. So these are two different things. They are obviously tightly knit. They feed each other. but they're not the same, and it has not been discussed enough for me in this panel, but that just shows where we are at with the discussion. That the residency program is a autonomous cultural practitioner or practice, that, and that's for me in a way something I would like to see develop more strongly. And how do you do this? Like with everything that was new in the cultural sector, new practices, like the curator, took a while until the curator was established as a role, as something that is accepted. And now we're back, I mean, this is also shifting discourse. Now we're back to artists don't need curators, they can do it themselves. You have artist curators. And I see with the residency program there's something similar going on. Of course, it's always different because time has moved on, we know more, we are differently connected, we have new technologies. So it takes all these steps again. We have to write it into policies, we have to talk about it to different stakeholders, we have to find out new ways to explore this. It needs trust, it needs generosity.
Thank you.
Although I don't believe in final solutions, I really believe in kind of complementary measures within the system and then moving and changing so that it is kind of in line with your position within the system. So, you know, being frustrated with not enough sources or whatever kind of like frontal but not fighting confrontation with the kind of frontal demands toward the system is for me kind of too rationally naive. So like we want something and then we don't produce a political position for changing stuff. So in that sense, I don't believe in things that couldn't be advocated or we can't fight for them or change something within the system. So from that point of view, final solutions, but you didn't ask for final solutions. So I believe that there are some solutions, and I think because of two tendencies in wider society, so maybe in some countries less, in some countries more, there are tendencies of, you know, kind of clientelistic type of control over the culture institutions, or at least they are kind of framed within the strong political decision-making process, and then they are applied to some constituency. On the other side, there is a tendency of privatization, you know, creative industry stuff, all these, you know, mumbo-jumbo, fake pretending that this will make more competitive the Europe and stuff like that. So pushing everything into some goals that are really not having any connections with the culture or with the autonomy of the culture, or at least with the reason of why stuff exists. So pushing everything to market and privatization is another course. So these type of two courses, I think they should be kind of amended or kind of change within the system towards the commoning of the public. So in terms of pushing the public institutions, the governance of public institutions more into the kind of stakeholders or constituencies governance. So for instance, culture centers are something, for me, there is no reason that these type of institutions are not organized in a manner of having not only political decisions control it, but also having constituencies, civil society organizations, watchdog organizations, local communities taking part in the governance of these type of culture centers. So that would be changed. That's some kind of opposing dynamic of total political control, soft or hard political control on one side, and on the other side privatization of the culture sector.
Max, want to say something?
I think there's a bipolarity in our society today. We have cultural projects with income and cultural project without income. And Residencies mainly is a project without income. And in a time when we everything count by money, that it's the gap we have to overbridge. Because and this is also what I have said, the risk we have to do. And on the because mainly the people are looking to this so-called event culture. And this is a big event, and so these small things, this small, very necessary basic work, what Residencies is it's forgotten, or it's not so in our mind, And the second one, it's very difficult to speak very wide about these things, because artists are persons, curators are persons, the local public is a summary of persons, and every person is a person, So every person has wishes, ideas, and so if you have somebody, and if you start a residency, and you have an artist who is very open-minded, and he gets a link to the public, everybody will support this project. If you have on the beginning an artist who is very self-concentrated and is not a very good communicator, the residency, I think, will die the program will die very fast. So I think it depends on the situation, on the local situation, how you can start this. It depends who supports this of the local commission. I'm living in a small village about 15 kilometers nearby of Graz. In the last years, about 500 people came and settled in this one. There are people, the new one, they came and they didn't speak any word with the local community. And we have people who came, and second day they had been members of the church, and they are now a very important persons in the local community. So I think it's very difficult to speak very general about this thing.
Thank you for the comment. Since we are in a limited time frame, I would just like to ask presenters if they have some final conclusion of the panel. We touched upon some very diverse questions. Are there the questions? I already asked for the questions. Are there any from the audience? Okay. I think we have been clear. We touched upon some very diverse questions and open a debate. I think a debate is a result we all needed. However, not enough time was given for some processes and solutions that could be implemented. This is something that is going to be hopefully the result of the whole forum, to open a dialogue and cooperation between all the different sides that were introduced into the forum. So if you have some final conclusion for this panel. I would like to thank all the presenters and the organizers, and to finish up. Thank you.